wonder if it's something that's it.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, it's about freaking time. I don't know why everything that's been working for a week now suddenly was not working. Guys, I apologize. Sorry we're getting started late. For some stinking reason, everything was acting weird, and it was working for me 20 minutes ago. So I apologize. How's everybody doing this evening?
Man.
All good, Cole.
Glad to hear, man. Glad to hear. Welcome. This is the third coaches roundtable that we've done on here. I know everybody don't really have an opportunity right now to get around your kids very much. Don't have an opportunity to maybe get around your staff very much at all. So for me, it's an opportunity to learn, trying to take advantage of it as much as possible. And so tonight's topic, one-word play calls, came by request from my man Nick Melantis. And so I'll be honest with you, it's something I'm familiar with. It's never something that I've made a huge part of what we do offensively. So what I really kind of want to do tonight is just start with a conversation and kind of talk through some theory things with you guys. And then I'll give you my input and maybe you guys, I hope, will be willing and able to share some different things that you've done in your career. A lot of times I think when we hear one word play call, the first thing we think is it's tempo based, right? It's teams that want to go fast, want to be able to use one word to really put the foot on the gas. When we got to Sprayberry 3 years ago, we wanted to be fast. We wanted to tempo. We were going to be a wristband team. It was a major overhaul for a lot of the kids as far as what we were doing offensively, but we were going to try to go fast. And realistically, we get 2-3 games into the season, and we decide as a staff the best thing for us is to take our foot off the gas, to get in the huddle and to slow things down because as a team, offensively, defensively, and even with our special teams and the depth concerns that we had, what was best for us. Since then, we have operated primarily out of the huddle, but we have always been able to move no huddle and move with a quicker tempo if we needed to. So, is there anybody here, I guess, that maybe operates out of a huddle, whether it's a sugar huddle or a traditional huddle, that still uses one-word play calls as part of your offense?
Even now or
Okay. So
Pete, we do. Pete,
go ahead, Coach.
Pete, we do sugar huddle.
Yep.
And we do use one-word calls, but there are certain situations.
Right.
But we don't consistently do it.
That's and we're kind of the same way. The truth is, and yesterday I was reading a press conference with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss now, and he was talking about probably obviously losing spring ball, being a new head coach in a new program, and how expensive that can be to the growth and development of the program, as opposed to if he was still at FAU, they know the kids, right? They know what they're good at. But I thought one of the interesting comments was they said, well, does that mean, somebody basically asked, is that an excuse for next season if things don't go well? And he responded, he said, the truth is, he said, offenses and defenses are not as complex as they used to be. They're easier to learn. And a lot of it was interesting, because the guys I was talking about it with, and I saw it on the message board, and people were kind of flustered by that. But the reality is, and I think in particular offensively, so many of us have come so far. We're not lining up in, right ace, tiger, Z-jet, F spot, all go. We're not – there's not a lot of guys doing that anymore. I mean, I was reminded of a quote when quarterback, I think it was an E.J. Manuel maybe from Florida State, got to the Buffalo Bills and they interviewed him about learning that offense and the translation to NFL. He said, our Florida State playbook was more difficult than this one. And Jimbo's always been he's a true pro style guy. He's kind of always been that way. But I think the trend in offense has obviously been to build concepts and maybe simplify and how we function and how we call things. I know even for us, and Coach Stilts, I know you're on here and you can attest to this. The truth is a lot of our calls are 2 words anyway. Once we signal formation, and if you want to count that, that's 3 words. So it's not like if the goal is to go fast, it's not like that's going to cost us that much more time. But I think that's kind of an interesting take. I do think there's still a place for one-word offense or one-word play calls within an offense. The question is, do you use those one-word calls as a staple, as your every down might be a drive opener, might be a 1st and 10 or a 2nd and medium call, and it's something you're going to carry every week? Or do the one-word play calls almost operate a little bit more as a gadget? And I've known guys, I've worked with guys, I've talked to guys that have kind of done it both ways. Go ahead.
I did have a question. By one-word play call, are we including direction and formation in that, or is that just?
So to me, when somebody talks one-word play call, it's one word gives you the whole pie, right? You got the whole piece of the puzzle. You're getting formation, direction, motion, which in some ways limits what the scheme could be, or in my mind maybe limits kind of how many you can carry. But maybe I'm wrong on that, because again, it's not something that I've done a ton of.
So they would have to be teaching a lot of decision makings to get in and out of bad situations in.
Yes. Now I will say this: most teams I know that have relied heavily on one-word play calls are teams that are limited with their formations, limited with their use of motion, and so that allows them
as well.
Yes, limited in personnel as well. That's a good call, Coach. Because if you live in 10 or you live in 11, it's a lot easier to build those one-word calls in. Where as a mid-zone team, we can run mid-zone, whether we're in a 10P formation, 11P, whatever that grouping is, we can window dress it. We can do anything we want. But there may be different tags that we need to add because of our variations or wrinkles that we might add based on formation or based on personnel grouping. But obviously that's not necessarily the case, with a lot of teams that really spend a lot of time. I think the most common use of one-word play calls in my experience has been, repeats, right? I've heard teams that if they want to run it again, they it's copy, it's Xerox. Teams that just they say roll. A dear friend of mine that's now deceased, his favorite was when he wanted to run it again, he said bohica. And it's a military term that means bend over, here it comes again. And that's what he used. And he would literally just shout it from the sidelines, man. He'd start screaming bohica, and the offensive line, you could see their eyes light up.
Coach DeWeese, one thing with us defensively, it's funny you say that because for me, if I want to run the same defense again, as opposed to going through all the hand signals and everything, our terminology is any kind of weather call.
Really?
Thunder, lightning,
Right.
hurricane. To other teams, it may sound like
Right.
I'm calling a lot of different plays. I may be calling one front and one coverage damn near the whole game if it's working. And in my history with one-word play calls for us, we kind of got away from it because it limited us so much offensively. Early on, a lot of our one-word stuff was always to the field side.
Right.
And it was limited to that, or limited to, our whole offense wasn't one word, but we had a package series, whatever you want to call it, that was specifically one-word play calls, and a lot of them were our RPO game, screen game, stuff like that.
Well, and I'll say this: I even know some 10P spread teams that still use. And I'll say this: I think if you go right and left with your outside receivers, and don't switch them sides of the field, but there's always outside guys always left, outside guys always right. I think that's easy. But I know I've talked to some guys that use strong and quick in their offensive line game, even though they're a spread football team. And I think that helps to some degree as well. Because if you're always going to run, if your one word play call is, Zorro, and you're always going to run Zorro to the field, it's very easy because kids understand automatically, okay, well, we're always running it to the field, so this is where I have to be lined up. That, in my mind, never worked for me, but I know some guys that have certainly had success that way. How many of you guys, if you have experience using one-word play calls, how many of you will have two words that are direction associated? So, like, you might have Zorro and you might have Zulu. And it's the same idea. Zorro would be to the right, Zulu to the left, and it's an automatic built-in one word for the kids. Anybody have an experience or do anything like that?
Yeah, we do, Pete. And right now, I guess kind of my thing with this is, and why I wanted to talk about it, was we did a bunch of it last year. And the way we kind of got our guys the plays was, it'd be a one-word play call. Hey, Thunder. Thunder meant we were going to get in two receivers to the right with a sniffer on the right side, and we were going to run power right at you. Thunder was power with an RPO tag off it. So we used it a lot with RPOs, but the way we get our plays in is a little different. Our outside guy signals to our two outside receivers. Yep. Our inside receivers coach signals routes to the two inside guys. Tight ends and, sniffers have their own coach. The O-line gets their signal, and I signal the running backs and the quarterbacks. So everybody kind of gets their own signal and just gets a responsibility. So, hey, it's more on the coaches, and we really just teach one guy the offense. We want to try and teach the whole offense to everybody this year. So I was just kind of curious how people are teaching, those concepts to those kids and getting them to remember, hey, right now we're experimenting with a few different things. But for example, if we want to run just traditional Y shallow,
right?
Shallow is coming from the attached tight end side. The attached tight end is always going to be the boundary.
So, I've kind of done some similar things, and I will say this, and maybe this comes back to Thunder was always power. If you have a bread and butter play, in my mind, there is absolutely no reason you can't have a one-word play call to just get on the line and try to go at people right now. Last year we just had the word auto. And whatever formation we had been in the play before, didn't matter. If our kids heard auto, they knew you get to the line right now, and we were running for us. It was mid-zone to the left behind what we thought was the better side of our offensive line. And to be completely honest, it was something we used early and I got away from late. And when I sat down and did my eval at the end of the season with myself, I regretted that, because I do believe that whether it's offense or defense, you have to have a home, and your kids have to be comfortable in your home. They have to live in your home, and they have to understand that it doesn't matter what a team is doing against you, that when you go home, you're going to be successful. You know what I'm saying? And I've just always felt like that. And every good team I've ever been a part of, we have had a home. We have had a place where we could live and find success at all times. So I am a big believer, and I know that's one of the reasons that I was, as I started to think more about this, that I was excited about this conversation tonight, was once we identified this is what we're best at, I want to be able to build them into one-word play calls and be able to get into it fast. I will say one thing that we did last year with one-word play calls that I thought was very effective when we needed it. And Coach Stilts, I know you signal, so you'll remember this, but we built one-word play calls into our 2-minute offense. So that, if we got in a 2-minute scenario, we had a simple concept that we called win. I got it from Russ Callaway when he was at Samford. We called it win because the idea was, guys, if we're calling this, we're trying to go win a damn ball game. And so automatically, we stayed in one formation. We stayed in a 2x2 double set, and we could call win, and I guess we could go 2 words and call win left. But the protection was automatic. The receivers, it was the one concept in our offense where the receivers didn't have, when we call stick or we call scat or we call snag or we call shallow, everybody has a built-in assignment. When we called win, you know, if we run win left, the X out of corner route. But if we run just regular win and it's understood to the right, well, he's got a cop route now, you know, and so that, and same thing, if you're the Z, if we're running win your direction, you had a speed out, but if we're running it away from you, you had a fin route, 5 and in. And that was the one passing concept we had in our whole system where we asked kids to kind of understand it from that conceptual base. But there were times, even in the huddle, it became very easy for me on a 3rd and 5 to just know that we're getting a cushion on the perimeter, and we would just signal in, hey, win. And we'd break the huddle and run it. But there were also times where if we needed to go fast, whether it was before the half or in the 4th quarter, and you know, we got to the point where with the quarterback, he and I had a lot of discussions about, you know, okay, let's say I don't want to call win, but I want to call our 4 verts concept. You know, typically we would signal formation, protection, the whole deal. But when we get in that 2-minute, we were going to be in 2x2. If I told him, I said, if I just signal the concept, can you get us in the protection we want? And it's understood because the receivers are going to know what to do. And so there were a couple, you know, Thursday mornings when we repped that. I threw it on Coach Stilts, and I didn't give a protection tag. It was just, you know, 6. And so, you know, I'm a big believer in moving forward is not only having one word play calls for our base offense and then the things that we're most comfortable with, but also we're going to build in one word play calls for our 2-minute package moving forward. Anybody else have any, you know, any experience or insight with maybe how they've handled it? Has anybody else used one word play calls in 2-minute situations?
So we do, like, I think there's a couple of
this year at Starkville.
Go ahead, Coach.
Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead. So, like, I think.
No, I was just saying this year while I was at Starkville,
Go ahead, Ray.
Go ahead, Coach. No, I was just saying this year while I was at Starkville, we experimented with the Fire Series.
Okay.
No, I was just saying we experimented with the Fire Series, and we was Fire 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we really only kind of used them to tempo after big play. So typically we get a explosive play, 20+ yard play.
Yep.
We'll hit Fire 1, which was all the way inside zone to the right.
Yep.
Fire 2 was always outside zone to the left. I think Fire 3 was like hitches or something to that sort, but we kind of got away from it because we kind of feel like it was limiting us. We always did it out of 2x2. I mean, you don't want to get in a situation where you're changing your fire calls a whole lot, because then you put learning on the kids.
Right.
So you want them to think as less as possible. But I do think it's a tool. I think it would be a good tool if you use it the correct way. We
did a similar thing several years ago. Last time I coached O-line, I was at Pope High School in Georgia, and we were a Tony Franklin system. And each week, and we called it, you know, Tony Franklin had their NASCAR series, right? And it was go, go, go. But we decided we were going to run, we had a fast break series, and it was 4 to 5 plays each week, and that's it. And what we actually did or tried to do was sequence them. So the second we called fast break, we were running play 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order as fast as we could possibly go, unless a turnover, a touchdown, or a third down took us out of it. And so, you know, we would practice it. We would do it on air at the end of practice on Monday, Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we would build it into one of our team periods where we would just all of a sudden say fast break, and the kids had been given the game plan, you know, on Monday, and these are the 4 plays that are in our fast break. And a lot of times it would be sequenced things. So if we're going to run inside zone to the right, the next play we were going to boot off of it, or we were going to ride it and then turn and throw the alley screen out wide. And it was something that you know, we had a little bit of success with, but it was the same thing. We thought we were kind of limiting ourselves a little bit, and we weren't getting as much success out of it as maybe we probably could have. And that was really kind of the first time that I had experienced a similar version, I guess, or an idea to the one more play call. Coach Monroe, was that you that was going to share a minute ago as well?
Yeah, and that's kind of, y'all kind of touched on it. Like, the never ending controversy I have with one word calls is I think once you put it in, you kind of paint yourself into a corner. So like if you say, all right, like we run a couple of them in the screen game, like when we attach screens to runs. So RPOs, just pre-snap, simple things. But, like Nick was talking about, their thunder is their power to the right with an RPO tag. See, for me, I would rather call that. Like I would rather call the run and then call the RPO itself so I can adjust on the fly. But, those attached screens are something like a definitive, okay, we know we're getting this, so we can do this. But like you go back to one word play calls and like all of our drop back game, Pete, and all of our quick game is one word stuff.
Right.
We're a conceptual passing team, and like we have some definitives like our Y cross. If we don't even call it Y cross, we just call it cross because the Y, it doesn't matter where he's at, he's running the cross.
Yep.
H has always got slot fade, X has got the hitch unless we tag him on the post, and Z's got a curl unless we tag him on the post.
Yep.
So I don't think there's a wrong way of doing it, but both you and Coach Rashawn over there both kind of touched on it. You kind of limit yourself as far as what you can do.
I think you can too. I will say this. I know the discussion here isn't necessarily RPOs. We have automatics built in with every run play. So if we don't tag anything, for us, if you are a single receiver, and can you guys see my huddle? I've got huddle playbook pulled up. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for us, any run play, if we don't tag, so if we just call, split zone, right, and we're working our split zone or our mid zone, whichever one we wanted to tag, our rules are that regardless of formation, if you are a single receiver that's out there by yourself, you're going to have whatever gift route we've game planned into that week. So whether it's a hitch or a speed out, it could be a slant, you've got it, right? We're always going to be running a screen to the multiple receiver side, and regardless of where he's lined up, we're going to run it to our H. And we're doing that because that's the guy that when we structure the offense, that's the dude that's got a chance to go 80 every time he touches the ball, or at least go 8 every time he touches the ball, right? So regardless of formation, that's built in. So it doesn't matter if I call mid-zone, split zone, I could call power, I could call counter. That's automatic, and, both of these are going to be pre-snap, and we're just using them as, to try to maintain. So if I tag the formation differently where we end up like this, well, again, it's understood the screen's always to H. So now it just becomes the flash screen instead of bubble. Same thing if he were to end up over here in our formation and we were in the 3x1, same deal. Now he's here. He would have the H would still be in the screen game, and he would still be here. Now we obviously have other RPO tags that we can add to that. But so even in our one word, like when we called auto last year, that was built in, right? And moving forward, if we're going to use one more play calls, regardless of the run and regardless of formation, those rules are still going to be at play for us. And I do think that has given us it's given us some freedom and some ability to, once we determine how they're going to play certain formations, it has given us the ability to attack and take advantage of certain things without having me to have to suddenly create a lengthy play call. So in my mind, if we're going to be one word, right, it needs to be simple. I feel very strongly about that. I will say this, and so Milanis, asking you, and really asking everybody, man, when you go one word and that one word play call is an RPO, does your quarterback feel like he has to make a big play because you're doing it to go fast and try to make a big play?
And we don't always do it to go fast. I think kind of the reason that we do it is it's our base stuff, right? So we can still get in if we want to get in 2x2 and run, Y shallow. We can still call ace Y shallow or
right.
ace Y shallow. but what I'm saying, when we teach it, we're saying, hey, when we run, when we
We
run
run
90,
shallow.
when we run shallow, if we just say shallow, then the coaches just have to signal in Army or tight end attached, why shallow.
Right.
So for us,
Now,
it's kind of just a beginning point, and then it's all on the coaches afterwards.
Right.
So for us, it's not so much are we trying to tempo you. It's when I look down at my call sheet, when we look down at our call sheet, it's looking down and saying, okay, it's much easier for me to look down and just say, hey, Thunder, go run Thunder, than it is for me to go and say, okay, do I want to run strong, golf right, hitch? No, I'm just running Thunder. Let's go. I already picked it out. I'm ready to go. And it makes it easier on me or us as a play callers to look down at a game script and go through all the crap that you got on it and, 70 different play calls that you have on it. And really, you're only going to call about 40 of them throughout the game anyway.
Right.
Now, is somebody already given the formation when you call Thunder, or is Thunder built into that
So
formation?
that's what I was.
Thunder the formation would be built in. So we go Thunder left. And the formation is always going to be the same. So if it's Thunder left,
we
the
actually
formation would be
switched
strong
that.
left.
So, like for us, when we were talking about one word power, for us in the past, we had one word, but one word described whether we were going to run to the right or to the left. For instance, power for us was Purdue, and they knew that we're running power to the right, Pennsylvania. And again, knowing that there was a peak tag, you know what I mean? We were looking for a peak RPO, so we basically power is P, peak is P, Purdue is to the right, hey, Purdue. And then if we want to go left, it's Pennsylvania.
We did a
Is that
similar
for you, Nick?
we did a similar thing at Milton. If Thunder was to the right, Lightning would be to the left. Kind of deal to kind of keep it in that same family. And it made it simple for our kids. Where I will say this, and I'm big, and maybe it's just how my brain works. Because I readily admit sometimes I can be a little bit of a weird dude. But, how your offense is structured from the naming of your formations to how you traditionally call your concepts and run plays, to me, all that matters when you're going to try to build in one word, right? Like for us, if we're going to run, our spread formation, what we call spread is it's a tight end on the hip of the right tackle, Z's out by himself, H and X are in twins to the other side. And then if we want to flip it, it's going to be spread left, And so that would be spread left and that would be spread. I've been on teams before and I've been in offenses before where formations, if Army was this same formation to the right, Navy might be the exact same formation to the left, or Trojan and Gladiator. For a long time, that was our nub trips formation in Milton. That would be Trojan, and that would be Gladiator. There is nothing wrong with that, But to me, if I'm going to do that, that makes it harder or more difficult for me to turn around and put one-word play calls, give them a direction like we just talked about, Coach. So I think so much of that structure and kind of building the terminology of the offense from the ground up. If you use numbers to call your run game, if 46 is power to the right and 47 is power to the left, that makes it easy in my mind to create one more play calls, right? If we're talking the formation is green, if you use colors for formation, which I've done before, so green is two back to the right kind of deal, and 46 when we power to the right, then to me it's easy now to say, hey, we're going to call Thunder, and we know we got to be in this formation, and we know we obviously know what's coming.
That's exactly what we do right there.
Right. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question. So
Go ahead.
I think I heard someone say that if they called a certain call, then this guy automatically knew that, he was the main target on this play, or the concept was for him, and basically everyone else is tasked with knowing everything else to do. Where I've been in a play calling system where I could call, okay, let's say if I just say snag, right? I tag my snag according to if I want to call it S, Z, Y, or X, as opposed to just saying snag and some offense and everyone knows exactly who's it going to and everyone else knows what their job is. So like I want to kind of talk about the pros and cons of both.
So I've done it that way. Man, I've kind of done it all. And I like what we do now. I'm not going to say it's the best thing in the world, because I think there's probably a better way. There always seems to be. So for us, if we were going to run snag, I've done it where it would be Z snag, and if the formation were over here, it could be H snag. It could be however. What we've gotten to, well, kind of the evolution is I went from that to a place where we were kind of using the Dan Gonzalez method. If any of you guys have ever studied Dan, everything on the front side for him is numbered. So what we would have done is tagged 471. The widest receiver to the call side knows he would have the 4 route. The second receiver would automatically have the 7 route, and the third receiver would automatically have the 1. Well, we could run the exact same concept with the exact same read if we were in a 10P formation. And again, widest guy would still have the 4, but now it's a different guy as the number 2 running the 7 route and a different guy running the 1 route. And it gave me a lot of freedom. And it always told the kids what to do, right? So we would go 471, and then we would tag on the backside. So, like, if there was no tag given, it was an automatic dig route on the backside. We could tag post, we could tag slant, whatever we wanted. We could run whatever protection we wanted, but it gave us a chance to be versatile. One thing it probably slowed us down was if we did want to go fast. So, we're at a point now where everything is going to be a concept. So, for me right now, just stealing language basically is, we run snag, we run scat, we run X stick. The reality is it's the same damn thing. I'm just putting different dudes in different places to try to exploit a matchup. And the only person that I really ever have that conversation with is my quarterback. But I can still use my one-word terminology, my conceptual terminology, because if we are going to run, if we're going to run snag, just to give you an example, our true snag is really a 4-man snag. So so based on our rules, we would be here with whatever game planned route on the backside, right? So that would be snag, and the quarterback's going to read it the same way. And the only difference between snag and what we would call scat is really going to be that doesn't look good. Where the quarterback's hots are going to be, right? Because if we were going to call scat, now scat is going to be in this formation. We're going to get him on the snag route. He's in the corner, tailback still here, right? And it gives me a chance to isolate my X, who's one of my best receivers, on the safety. At the same time, if we're getting a lot of zone coverage, that X is one of my best guys. Well, I'm going to use the formation that instead puts these guys here. And now I get him on the corner, and I get my best receiver underneath. And so for the quarterback, same thought process, nothing's changed. But so even when I build in one word, right, as long as the quarterback can hear that one word and associate protection, that allows me, Coach Westerfield, that allows me to kind of control where the kids go and not necessarily have to tag an individual. There's no difference in what I'm doing. Right. To me, in some ways, like it minimizes a little bit of learning. If I say, hey, if I tag Z, you got to run this. If I tag Y, I've found when I tell kids, hey, this is what you run on scat, this is what you run on snag, they don't have to know that we're reading the same freaking thing and the concept hadn't changed. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you're adding to it when you're
put
telling
all the
who
guys
that
in the same spot.
Say it again, Coach. Say it again.
Do your guys, like, regardless of what formation you're in, do they always know that they line up in the same spot? Is your X or your receiver? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So for
Okay,
us,
I was asking you. Yeah, go ahead.
So like, I think this is what you're asking. Like, do they know to line up in the same spot? So like this would be spread for us. If I want to move the H outside and the X in, we just tag spread swap, and it's swap automatically means that those two dudes are swapping place, right? So if I want to run,
See, that's what I was wondering because.
Yeah, if I want to get him on the snag instead of tagging X snag, I just I tag it X stick. He will, for whatever reason. Basically, when we run our normal stick, we would be here and here, and I just tell them on X stick we're swapping responsibility. So it works for our kids. It works for me, and I think it has worked for our coaching staff.
Right.
But if I want my H on the underneath route, we just go spread swap, which honestly, if we're going to put the two receivers into the boundary, or if the ball's, near that hash, we love this for run game purposes because I think that's a better angle because we're liable to get a tighter corner when we put two dudes into the boundary. So we think that's a better angle than trying to run bubble. So the other thing that does though is now if we want to run that snag into the boundary, we just make that swap tag in the formation, and it helps us, and we can use it in the run game and the passing game, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So any other kind of questions, maybe anything specific y'all want to discuss as far as one-word play calls go?
I was going to talk about how we use it. I was making sure I was on the same page as everyone.
Yeah, Coach.
What we do in our game planning on Sunday is come up with a speed ball is what we call it. And it's simple stuff. We just want to go 100 miles per hour, snap the ball as soon as the ball is put on the ground. The formation stays the same depending on the boundary, depending on the hash, I'm sorry. So if we want to go trips to the field, there'll be a bubble to the field. We'll go inside zone.
Yep.
With a gift, and we'll just speedball that. We'll go as fast as you said, just like NASCAR you said earlier. So we'll do that. And we'll also, any sort of trick play that we want to do that week, we'll just call it play 1, play 2, play 3. So if we have 3 trick plays, we just put up one finger and then what that play 1 is, no matter where we are in the field, play 2, play 3, same as I said earlier. So that's kind of how we use our one-word plays.
That's actually, I was going to ask how many guys use it with their gadgets. That is definitely one place I've always liked them, right? And actually, before tonight started, I was sitting in on a different one that Sean Liotta out of Pennsylvania was doing. And he's got a new book out. I think it's No Huddle, No Mercy. It's kind of how he's branded his offense. And he was talking about his exotics and his gadgets and using shifts and motions. I am a big fan of shifts and motions. I probably don't run them as much as I would even like, but just kind of to give you an example, we used a decent amount of bunch last year because we saw a decent amount of cover one. And we wanted to be able to get teams out of it, not let them straight up man-to-man, make them banjo, make them pass things off. So we used bunch, and one of the things that we would do is we would align like this, and we would tag bounce to the formation, which we would then shift both of these guys over. And bounce meant that not only were they shifting, but there was an automatic jet sweep coming after it. And then we would still tag the play off of it, right? We would bunch left bounce, and then, we would call jet, or we would call the inside zone off of the jet, or the play action over the top. We had, different things that we would do. But I know a lot of teams that use one-word play calls, for them, they might call it bounce if they're going to motion both of these guys and follow it up with the same jet motion, just like we do. Well, bounce might be an automatic jet, right? and jump might be an automatic fake the jet, hand it off, and then the next series dunk or whatever, just to kind of stay in that kind of basketball mind frame, might be the play action off of it or the reverse pass off of it or whatever. And so that's one thing. I know that's something I talked about in the last one is you know, how I'm constantly trying to think and kind of the wing team mindset, right? Where everything has a series and things work sequentially. And same deal with one word play calls, right? If we can create a structure in our terminology and in our language that that allows our kids to think that way, right? If whether we, you know, if we want to go Army, Navy, Air Force, National Guard, Marine, and have 5 plays built in that use a shift, use a motion, and are a series of plays built off one another. In my mind, it's a very easy way to teach and to learn and have the formations and the motions and the whole play call built in its entirety. So any of you other guys use use for your gadgets? I've been guilty, I think, in the past for my gadgets and my tricks of giving them long words, because I almost want to remind every kid what to do, because a lot of times you're calling them, it's you know, it's in an excited moment or it's a stressful moment, and you just want to remind us, we may not give this a whole lot of practice time during the week, so I want to make sure the kids know it. And I think sometimes when I dial that stuff up and put it on the board, I spend too much time making it wordy, you know. I think giving that stuff a one-word recognition play call sequence might actually help the kids, as long as I do a good job, you know, throughout the season of giving that enough time in practice.
We always script ours in.
Hey, Coach, let me ask you this. I know, did you say a minute ago that you start on Monday? So, like, do you do it every day, or is there a specific period built in for it? How do you work that?
So we typically we have a very lengthy script. I've scripted up to 17 plays before. I mean, I know a lot of people don't believe in that, but we had a lot of success with that this year. So I will build in, you know, play one, play two in that 17 play script. If it works throughout the week, we run them every day. We run our script every single day, no matter what. But if, you know, play 2 didn't work, it didn't hit very well, I will scrap that. We won't call that on Friday night. But I script them. I put them in there to make sure we practice them.
Right. That's one of my fears, and one of the things we always talk about when we try to go fast and we're putting exotics and different shifts and formations. One of the hardest things for us is always, you know, the reality is we don't know how those dudes are going to react on the other side. And so, you know, I can show you a clip. And Coach Stiltz, I know you remember this. We line up last year in our preseason scrimmage, and we decide that we're going to line up in our bunch. We're going to shift the formation, and we're going to hand jet to our fastest dude. Our kids just flat out, like, you know, we just tagged one word, jump. And that's all it was. It was understood what was going to happen. So here it is. We toss it to him, and our kids just flat out don't block anybody, and he gets rocked. You know, on paper, I'm putting 4 dudes to a side over there, and I'm about to toss it to my little slot that's got a chance to go everywhere, and I'm doing it into the boundary, and here they come, and they're just playing match here basically. And my guys, it happens so fast, they don't communicate it, and he just runs free. And so we walked in the meeting room on Sunday, and I said, guys, don't let me get Bush killed again, because he's too valuable, you know. Do you worry about that when you're scripting and you're working all that stuff, not knowing how they're going to line up? Because that's one of the things when I was watching Coach Leota earlier and all the stuff he's doing, he's doing some funky stuff with his formations, man, and shifting linemen and doing all this stuff, and I think it's awesome. But with my kids, if I can't give them an idea of what that picture is going to look like, it's not going to be pretty for me.
Right. Yeah. We run into that. I mean, what I try to do is every single day give them a different alignment. And it's time consuming. I mean, I put it out on paper. for our scout team coach, and every time I'll get a different shift per day. So I try to give them a different look every single day, but you never know how they're going to react. That's the reality, though. You know what I mean? You got to let them. The more you do it, I will say, the more often you put them in that bind, the more often you put them, and in those situations, the better off they're going to be down the road. You might struggle with it week 1, week 2, week 3, but week 5, week 7, week 9, that's when it's going to pay the dividend.
How many of you guys use a competition period or a true good on good within your weekly practice schedule? And it may just be 3 plays or 5 plays, but it is your offense versus your defense. Nothing's carded, and you're playing ball and you're going to win. How many of you use something like that throughout the week?
I know we definitely do.
Yeah, we do at least one day, sometimes even 2, depending on how the week's going.
I know when I was at Milton, there were a few years in particular that we would often end practice, or at some point during practice, if we were kind of having a lull, we would go live for 5, and we'd put the ball on the 10-yard line, and the offense had 5 plays to score. And they were calling their stuff, and we were calling ours. And at the time, I was coordinating the defense. And the most frustrating thing was, all our checks for the week would be based on what our opponent did, not versus, So we would check a coverage or check a stunt based on the formation. And I would just tell my kids, hey, trust your rules, right? Call our game plan. And so our guys would run the freaking worst thing that they could run that our opponent on Friday night wasn't going to run. But one of the things that they did a good job of is they would mix their specials and their gadgets into that period. Now, they were only going to get us once, because the next week, even if they didn't run it on Friday night, but they kept it in the plan, if they ran that shift, our kids knew what was going on. But I thought it was a great way for our guys to, look, you know how it is, right? Your kids go against each other so often. They know who's good at what. They know what move each pass rusher is going to run. And your offensive linemen have an understanding of what your defensive front is going to be, But it was a good way, I think, for them to see blind how is a team going to react when we run that stuff. And I give credit to a couple different guys that were coordinators during that period that they would a lot of times use, even though it was a brief period, to work their tempo, their one word, and their gadgets in that period. And I don't necessarily think that's something, we have competition periods built in a decent amount, and we go good on good a decent amount, especially early in the season. And I don't know if I've taken advantage of that, because I want to know if I can run my best against their best. I'm so focused on, can I run my top concepts against our front, especially when I think our front is good. So I maybe I take the wrong approach, but I think that if you guys have a good on good period built in, I think it's a good way to handle it. I want to.
Well, Coach, going back to Call's gadgets,
yes,
I know
sir.
Years ago we used to run a lot of jet stuff, and our jet call was Joker. So ultimately, it's very simplistic. It's not like it's some world beater or something brand new, but we'd have a jet sweep pass off of it. And if we wanted to run the jet sweep pass as opposed to running our jet sweep, the call was Batman.
Yep.
So they knew that, okay, Joker, we're normally running the jet. Batman means we're running the jet, but we're looking to hit the pass.
I love that. Like the word association, the simplicity of it. I love that. So I want to this was kind of my next. I know some guys that are tempo. I know some guys that use some one word play call. And they'll do RPOs, they'll do a lot of different stuff, but they also build in just kind of some different like combo plays that I think are very interesting, right? And they're committed to them. One of the teams in our area, they love to get in 3-by-1, and they will one word play call it, and they'll have inside zone over here, and they'll have a gift route here. And out on the perimeter, they'll have the bubble to number 3. But here's what they do different. And this is what like I look at every time I watch it on film, it just blows my mind. And maybe it's just me. but they send one vertical on the bubble. And when they throw that, so the quarterback, when they call, Zulu, 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 or whatever their one word is, he just looks, do I have the gift? No. Do I have numbers for the bubble? If he's got numbers for the bubble and he throws it out there, the H is reading the corner. He catches the bubble, gets eyes on the corner, and if the corner's attacking, he freaking lets it go. And it's built in, and it's all the time. And the truth is they don't hit it because teams see it on film, right? But what ends up happening is you negate a defender that you have to block. Right? So what what's a defensive answer? What you do. So what's the defense's answer? Well, if you got to get the safety involved in the bubble. Right? Well, okay, you just lighten the box. You're giving us you're taking away a potential cutback player. So a lot of teams end up with this invert out here, and so they have things built in where now instead of running that, they basically run stick, and make that safety cover from depth. So I think there's some really creative things you can do with one word play call if you're willing to live with it. I was watching something not long ago, and I don't fully recall where I was watching it, and so I don't want to give credit where it's not due, okay? But essentially what somebody did was they lined up, I think they put two receivers into the boundary, so they were something like this, and then they had twins over here. So what they did was this. They one word play called it, okay? He was automatically blocking first thing head up to outside. The offensive line was automatically blocking stretch, okay? He's getting out, so however the defense is structured, I believe what they did was he was taking first thing head up to inside. So based on this, he'd actually end up on backer, and he's going to end up on the alley. So what they did was this. It's one word, right? If the quarterback looks out there and they don't have the bodies out there to defend it, he pulls up and throws the quick screen to the H. If he doesn't like it, if he's getting pressed and the safety's down here, or, if they're an 8-man front or something and they've got the overhang and they felt like they were outnumbered over there, he just gave a hand signal to the H. And now it's built-in jet motion to the guy. So, and what I liked about it was, right, it wasn't a easy, and quarterback checks the play. It's not even an RPO. It's a true combo play, and he one-worded it, right? I don't even remember what he called it, but Coach, y'all call it Joker, So let's say it's Joker. If you look out there and you're getting a soft cushion and they don't have numbers in the boundary, give it to him, right? And if they've got numbers, then okay, then come on back. And the more I started thinking about that, talk about a great way to one-word it.
That's true. True one word in it right there.
It is.
That's true one word. That's about as most one word as you can get.
It is 100%, and same.
We have a snake call. Snake is what it was for us, but we ran a scat concept on the 3 receiver side, and actually ran some. Basically running a screen to the tailback where the quarterback comes back. If he doesn't see it,
turn and throw.
You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3. Drop it back over there again. That was our snake as opposed to our lizard or something. You know what I mean? It was again going back to it, but like you said, if you can just call a joker and you're able to check both sides right there, same kind of thing.
And same kind of deal. If you're sitting there, out of 3-by-1, and you tell your guys, hey, if I get too high, rip the bubble out there, and if I get one high, then let's motion him and let's run the jet because and now let's get the tailback out there on the overhang, let the offensive line block stretch. Same concept, man. You build it in with one word, Nobody's job changes but the H, and all it takes is the quarterback looking out there and waving him in motion. Because it doesn't matter if you're throwing the bubble and the tailback's hauling butt to the left to get out to the to the flat. Doesn't matter. Might actually slow somebody down in pursuit. So that is one of the kind of ways to maybe run a one-word play call that is very new to me. Is creating these combo plays that are pre-snap read that just have one word built in, and you're talking about maybe changing one dude's job as opposed to changing one dude's job as opposed to having to check things, but just having just that very simple adjustment and being able to do anything.
But the good thing about that is, I mean, you're teaching decision making, but it's only one person making the decision.
Exactly.
You don't have a bunch of variables going on.
Right. Doesn't change your blocking scheme, doesn't change. Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to worry about communication between the guard and center. Well, I thought I saw this and I decided to do that. And they're all running the same thing because that's what Joker is. And the quarterback and the H, they're on the same page and they've been in the meetings, and this is what it means.
If you watch, and this is kind of similar, and maybe
I like what we did as far as our oddballs with our wrist plays.
Yeah. So what Coach Stilts is referencing is if we got into a point in this isn't necessarily one word, but we got into a point last year because we were huddling most of the time. If we had 5 or 6 things that were special, right? Instead of having to worry about creating a signal and all this stuff, we just got to the point where we would just give the quarterback band 1, band 2, and in the huddle he'd be able to read it off. It certainly wasn't one word, but it was a way to give us some creative freedom from week to week. Because if you're going to be a tempo team and you're talking about how we communicate it, how do we signal it, how do we do all these things, that gave us an easy way in the huddle in particular. I've seen teams as well that might put only their specials on the band and everybody's got them, right? Band 1, band 2, whatever. And that may be their way of going one word, so to speak. I think it slows you down a little bit. I'm going to show you something that we dabbled in last year. If you watch Purdue, you watch Penn State, you watch a lot of these kind of power spread offenses. One of the kind of combo plays that I think very easily can be a one-word play call is a lot of teams will run jet sweep. Teams will fake the jet and run, zone back the other way, whether it's inside zone, split zone, outside zone, whatever. What a lot of the college guys are doing now is putting it on the quarterback and just giving him a simple number count, and it's read instead of called. Right? So we would always just tell our quarterback, hey, it's all about the overhang, right? How many guys do they have out there and who do you have to be worried about? So in practice, if we were getting this kind of look, I would just talk to him about that's the only guy you got to worry about, right? In theory, we're counting on our Y to block this nickel. We're counting on him to block the corner, but we have to be able to account for the safety. So when we would wave or clap or whatever starts your motion, his eyes would be here. And if that dude stayed back, he was going to give the jet, but the entire offensive line, the tailbacks, everybody else would be running zone to the left. And if that safety triggered on motion and they rolled that thing down, he automatically was just going to fake the jet and then hand off that zone the other way. And so it's kind of a run option instead of an RPO. But it's a very simple way, if you think your quarterback can handle it mentally, to get, to kind of give you a chance to get numbers. And I think it's something that if you've got the right guys on the perimeter that can help you seal a guy, talk about something that can be an easy one-word play call. And again, it's just like the one I showed you earlier where the H is running the screen or running the jet motion. Hell, the offense doesn't know who's getting the ball. The quarterback's the only dude on the field that really has to understand what's happening from a leverage standpoint and what the box count or the alley count looks like. that was something that we looked at last year on the goal line, and I regret not maybe looking at it more in the open field, because I know a lot of guys do use it in the open field. Anybody else have anything similar to that may be a part of what you do?
Yeah, Coach, we're doing this for the first year with our one-word calls. We do it more off of power and counter, though. It is a lot on our quarterback. I teach our quarterbacks, so that's probably why I feel a little more comfortable with it, to be honest with you. And we kind of have the gift built in. We have like a backside hitch. We call it tray for us, which puts our tight end on the line. And we have a 6'3", 220 quarterback. So, like, he gets behind our pulling guard, who absolutely, honestly destroys people. It's basically for him, we push our running back out.
Yep.
And he's an amazing catching running back, can make a lot of things happen. We'll actually – normally for us, we see 4-4 cover 3 is typically what we see here in North Carolina in our conference. So normally, yeah, that's normally how they line up right there on that huddle. And then we have the backside hitch if he wants it. We teach them they can convert if they want. If they press, we got a fade. He's got a big arm. I'll let him sling it, not scared to let him sling it. And then we'll actually run power to the right, and we'll read that basically who the mic on the right pretty much. And I just teach him read color. If he sees color fly out, then as soon as that linebacker flies out, he knows that he's just gonna kind of pop up, almost look like he's gonna throw it, and then he's coming right behind that guard. And that guard, really, at that point, the guard's probably moving to the safety because that linebacker's out of there.
Right. Yeah. If he's running, that linebacker's vacated.
Right.
So he's going to put his eyes right here, and it's all about, does he trigger on motion?
Yeah, and we push him so that way it's pre-snap.
For sure.
He doesn't do anything in the middle of the play. Like, it's all pre-snap for him. Basically, I mean, we narrowed it down. Like, we had a ton of one-word calls, and like, we'll put it this way, we have a lot of one-word calls in our arsenal, and we change them. Well, not change them. We dictate what we're going to use year by year. Last year, I had a running quarterback.
Yep.
So we did a lot more one-word calls like you had drawn up, like with him being as a run threat. This year, throwing guy, big, powerful guy, like he'll get you 5 yards of carry, but he won't get you 50. My guy last year ran a 4.4. And if he got past the linebackers, nobody called him ever.
Right.
But this guy, we run more counter and power with him, and we make it so that everything's pre-snap for our quarterback. Nothing outside of like RPO. And we're a big RPO team. We pretty much tag everything. There's not much we don't tag. The only time we really don't tag stuff is probably in our 4-minute offense, when we're really just trying to just end the game. Other than that, my head coach pretty much gives me the liberty. He says, hey, tag it, we'll live with it. And that's the only thing, like when you do these one-word calls and you do RPO and tag it, sometimes when the quarterback comes to the sideline, I'm like, dude, what'd you just see? And he's like, this is what I saw. And I'm like, okay, let's just go look at the iPad. Like, I just have to sit there and live with the fact that I mean, he might make that – I really might want him to hand it off, and he just slung it to a bubble. And I'm like, look at my head coach, and I'm like, sorry, man. Like, I know you wanted to run it, but, like, you also want me to tag it. So, those are the kind of things that we do. I don't know if that helps at all, but we just do a lot more pre-snap stuff off of our one-word calls than anything else.
I'm a big fan of that, and I know I talked about it in the last one too. Is I love pushing the tailback out or pushing somebody out to give him that same deal. We did, and especially against one high teams, we liked getting in two back. And actually, the way we did it last year was we did it with an attached tight end, and so we would get in twins with the one high. I wanted to see, what are they going to do with the corner? Can we attack strong side if that corner's real deep? And this guy's off the ball. But the other thing it allowed us to do was, pre-snap, we could always get this guy out and give him a very easy decision, man. What happens with this guy? Does he trigger? And if he doesn't go, if he triggers on the swing right now, we would hand the ball off and cooperate, internet. We would have our mid-zone going over here. And so we'd tell him, if that dude doesn't trigger, throw the swing. If he triggers at all, hand the ball off. But I think, if you're going to one-word this, right, there's no reason you can't also one-word, a snag or a play action off of it that the same way. If he wants to start flying out and, there's no reason you can't build in that one word that now gives you that read now, and I think that moving forward for us offensively, because I do think tempo will suit our team to a degree next year. Those are the kind of things that I want to be able to do, want to be able to look at regardless of what that formation is.
Out of curiosity, how many of you guys, as far as one-word play calls, use boards, for instance? I know a lot of people with one-word play call are big on the boards because they can say, hey, this means this, obviously. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the boards, whether I've been on the offensive side of the ball or not, Again, like Pete, I've been on both sides of the ball, so you kind of have an idea of what, teams are trying to do to you. But personally, I've never been a big fan of the boards. How does everybody, anybody use them or thoughts?
I don't.
The only time I've used them was when I was the defensive coordinator and the offense used them. And so for them, they trying to remember exactly how. So they signaled and had the boards. Basically, there was one signal that told you look at the boards, right? One board was personnel, and it was going to be whatever personnel we were in. There were 3 boards at all times, right? And if it said look at the board, it was kind of a way for them to handle certain things, especially things that they thought were wordy and hard to signal. But they did have a couple of one-word play calls built in. So they would give whatever the signal was to look at the board. I don't remember what it was. They would look at the board, and there would be the formation, and then one board would be a meant nothing, and the other board would be a meant everything kind of deal. And obviously,
well, I know some people use the boards where each square means something. Whether you're, one is going to be your strength, one's going to be your blocking, pass protection. So, and then at the other times, I know, they've used boards, and because at the end of the day, you can end up with a hell of a lot of boards depending on what you're trying to do with them.
In my opinion, the best use of boards, and I can't tell you exactly how they did it at Oregon back in the day, but in my opinion, the best use of boards is formation, right? Because if you're going to be and Coach Fields, correct me if I'm wrong, you're Lexington Catholic, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So Jeff Irwin is a Kentucky guy. He's back in Kentucky, but he was in Georgia for a long time.
Yep.
And when he was at Lassiter, he's a Tony Franklin guy, 100%. And Jeff, they always had boards, and it was formation boards, right? It was whatever board you saw. If it was the 49ers logo, they were going to be in trips. If it was whatever logo, and so I think that if you're trying to be a spread no huddle team, that using the boards just gives the kid an immediate, hey, I got to get my butt over there to get lined up. Now they can focus on the signal, and the signals can be faster, focusing on what the actual play call is. Does that make sense, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I know from some of the stuff that I've read with Oregon too. They had some boards were
live.
Live.
Yep.
And then the other one, another board may be their one-word play calls, and they're telling them, through hand signals, they're telling them which square, they're looking to go. So, you got that mix and match, which obviously at a, big-time college program like Oregon, you got plenty of assistants to do all that damn work for you, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have a whole bunch of assistants that I can rely on to put boards together for me. You know?
Well, that's like my man Nick, talking to him at Clay Chalkville in Alabama. You know, one guy signals outside receivers, one guy signals inside receivers, one guy signals O-line, one guy signals quarterbacks and running backs. I think it's awesome. We don't have the staff to do it. You know, I've got myself on a headset. Coach Stiltz that's on here has got a headset, and our wide receiver coach stands next to him and doesn't have a headset. And each week our kids know which one's live and which one isn't, and they're the only two signaling. So,
yeah, I'm moving defensively to me giving the front 7 calls and you know, having my defensive back coach, you know, relay coverage calls. So, you know, that's something that's going to be, you know, a little bit new for me.
I used the boards one time defensively to do my trips check because that's what I wanted to change. So I wasn't always doing the same thing, whether it was mini, whether it was true cover 2 or we stayed. And so I'd call the coverage, and the board color, and it was just colored squares, was my trips check because I named them all different colors. And it made it easier to signal in the front. And then my secondary guy, he'd get the coverage and it'd be 2, and then they look up gold. And then gold.
I will say this. I have considered this offensively, and I've never done it. But when I was coaching defense, I had a kid, whether he was an injured player or a backup, would stand next to me just with a binder, and I had a red sheet of paper, a blue sheet of paper, and a green sheet of paper. And if it was a rundown, I would just tell the kid red, and he would hold up that red card, pass down blue. If it was a mixed bag, might get anything, he'd hold up that green. And my kids loved it because it was very easy to look at me, get the defensive signal, and take a peek and know I need to be expecting a run here, right? And I've thought offensively because, let's be honest, you know, you may do a hell of a lot better job than I do. And some of you definitely probably do. But what our kids sometimes get lost in is it's 3rd and 2, and our offensive linemen, they don't have that weight out in front, and they don't realize what that situation is sometimes. And so I've thought about using boards for that, basically for my offensive linemen. Hey, 1 card means you're about to get blitzed because it's 3rd and long. 1 means cut off the inside because they're about to pinch everything because it's 3rd and short, you know, and just giving them that extra piece of awareness, because we always assign a kid, hey, you're in charge of telling the huddle down in distance. I'm not on the field, and I can ask all I want to. I don't know how much it's happening, right? But our left tackle for the past 3 years has been assigned and looking over and going, hey, 3rd and 6. I don't know how much it happens, you know. So I will say, as far as cards go offensively, that's one way I have legitimately thought about using them, because it's easy. And it, you know, the O-line guy to me doesn't need to be a signaler. He needs to be able where he can get behind and watch. And so you can give anybody else that job. So he doesn't have to stand at the line of scrimmage and scream at them or tell them, hey, it's 3rd and 2. You know, just all they got to do is check that color. So that is one thing I have considered before. So
one other question, guys.
Yes, sir.
Do any of you guys headset practice? I know we headset every practice and wear a headset every practice. I was curious if anyone else is doing that.
I can – the first time I saw that was – and I can tell you it was 8 years ago because I had a Facebook memory pop up today. 8 years ago, went to North Carolina and spent some time with that staff. And that was the first time I watched an offensive staff practice with headsets. It's something that I know Coach Stiltz and I have talked about, and that's something that I don't think we'll do for all of our practice, the entire portion, but that's something we are going to do this year, because I think, you know, if you're, especially, you know, Coach, you talked about you script 17 plays maybe, right, for an offensive period. So if you're trying to go fast, right, and you want to be able to call plays and coach on the fly, being able to communicate with your coaches, hey, write down he missed this, write down what, you know, and at the same time, if you're doing a good on good period, right, let your box guy give you that information just from the field. You know, practice that chain of command and play call, especially if you're a young play caller or a new play caller. That opportunity to practice that, I think, is vital. And so that is something that, Nick, we are going to this year. Our headset that we use will allow that. I know I've had some systems in the past that would have made that a pain. The ones we have now, that's not going to be an issue. And we finished the year, and I don't want to go much longer, but I will say that one thing we did at the end of the year is we worked a lot of like basically double huddle stuff. So when our defense, when it was their team period, our one offense will be on the left hash and our JV on the right hash. We'd run a play, run off, and then immediately JV was on, and everybody's done that. One thing I think that really helped us offensively at the end of the year to be efficient and get a lot of work in was we put our huddle on the 50 and we put the ball on both 40s. So if we turned towards our scoreboard, the ball was on the left hash on the 40. If we turned away from the scoreboard, ball was on the right hash on the 40. So our kids are 2 to 3 yards off the hash is kind of what we tried to do. And varsity defense on one end, JV defense on the other, so we could fast and work tempo and still have time to show cards to the two units that were giving us a look. And it was a very efficient way for us. But one thing that to do that and for us to go fast, myself, Coach Stilts, and our wide receiver coach that signaled, we all stood on the sideline, but our O-line guys were out there so they could watch it from behind. I couldn't communicate with them between plays without slowing down the whole operation, right? Adding the headsets now, I can get that communication that I need without having to slow everything down and add time to our practice. So that is definitely something that we're going to use moving forward, even if it's just for that specific scenario for when we work 2 minute and for our competition periods. I think that can be a valuable way to add to our practice. So,
Coach, I just wanted to speak on, we transitioned from a band team to signaling everything, and everyone had to know the entire offense this year. And we practiced several times. I shook my head no, but then I thought about it, and we actually practiced several times just how the communication, like you said, chain of command.
Yep.
And it paid huge dividends when we got to week 1, week 2. So
yep.
Yeah, I mean, we'll headset our Thursday walkthroughs too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we literally headset everything.
smart.
Well, and I'll say this too, though, Nick, the way you guys call plays, you almost have to.
Right. And that's a big thing too.
Yeah. So I know the way you communicate. Guys, I'm gonna wrap this thing up here.
Thanks again for doing these, Pete.
Hey, man,
Hearing
Coach.
from other coaches, getting other ideas. I mean, it's fantastic. It's the way of the future.
Listen, man, I take notes every week and I get feedback every week, and there's no doubts. There's things that pretty soon I'm going to get on here with my whole offensive staff, and I'm going to be like that kid saying, "Guys, listen to this. We got to do this." And so it's certainly been good for me. I hope it's been good for some of you guys. I know that I enjoy it. I am blessed that my wife lets me do it. Try to wait until the toddler's at bed. That's why we go at 8. But there's no doubt, man. I've enjoyed these. If this is your first time doing this one, this has been recorded. At least it's supposed to be. I will be posting it on my website tomorrow. I will tweet that link out. So, man, fellas, I appreciate you coming. If you ever need anything, hit me up. I mean, look, we're all right. We're the best. I mean, preachers and teachers and coaches are the best at stealing and copying and everything else. And nothing we really do is a secret. To me, the secret sauce is how you communicate, how you drill, and how you teach stuff. And there's no doubt I'd love to get some secret sauce from you dudes, because I know, some of the guys on here and the programs that you're from, and even if I don't know you well, I know the production you have. So that's why I'm excited about some of these dudes that are logging in. So, fellas, I appreciate it. I may try to knock one of these out this weekend, but if not, Monday night I'll be back. I don't know what the topic is. If you got an idea, shoot me a message on Twitter. Pretty soon, I know that I'm gonna go old school and talk 22 or 31P offense, just because every now and again I got to get that out of my system. But if you got another idea and there's something you want to talk about, or if you want me to advertise this thing and give you the mic for the whole time, come on, brother. Just be willing to teach something. All right, fellas? So thank you again. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Pete.
Hey, Coach, I got a question for you.
What's that?
So earlier you were talking about, throwing the bubble, running jet.
Yep.
And my big thing is we struggle. We can't just run stretch and set the edge. So in that situation right there where you're trips and you're trying to run jet into the boundary, what do you do? I mean, are you going to cut that boundary defense in or what?
So what we did last year is we would do one of two things. We would either compress the formation, try to crack him and pull the tackle,
okay,
or we would try to reach with the tackle and pull the first uncovered lineman, right? Whether it's odd front, in front, money says we're going to outrun the nose. And so we would try to pull the first uncovered, and so let's say it's the guard, which is what we want over the center. I'm going to what we tell him is if I pull around and that 5 technique or whatever has beat my tackle, I'm going to put my inside shoulder on his outside shoulder, and at that point we're basically double teaming that. It becomes a combo at that point.
Right.
And I'm just trying to basically open that outside shoulder and turn it in so that the back can get the alley and then the back's on its own.
So if in that situation, they don't let you set the edge, you run into the sideline, is your lead, your tailback, is he just going to stick his foot and get vertical, find first half that shows?
So what we typically do is we're going to send our receiver to safety and put tailback on corner.
Okay.
Now, one, if you're going to squat and play cover 2 and that dude's going to force you in a hurry, you're putting that receiver in a bind. It's hard, especially if they're playing some type of like cut where he's 4 or 5 yards inside leverage and he triggers immediately. Mm-hmm. Your receiver's never going to block him, right? So let's give him to the tailback, let the receiver go get the safety. The other thing that does is open up the play action where you're now switching and getting that tailback on the rail route. Right. And as long as you keep that in, it kind of protects you blocking it that way.
Right. Well, what I was thinking about is we have a ton of success running power read.
Yeah.
Is throw the bubble, offensive line's running power read, and now we're on the edge right now.
Yeah.
That's probably what I would do.
Yeah. I mean, look, whether you're blocking it like stretch or blocking it like power read or even blocking it like counter read, right. I don't think there's any – I don't see what any issue. Whatever fits in your blocking scheme, you're just putting them in a bind now. And again, it's the whole point of the whole RPO thing is you're trying to give yourself an opportunity to always be right.
Right.
But now pre-snap, and this is – I'll say this, like I was talking earlier with our run game, there's always a screen built in. There's always a gift route built in, and then there's obviously always the run. I have the ability to tell my quarterback what I want.
Right.
Now, post-snap RPOs, that's me putting it in his lap, right? But I can look at my quarterback, and we've got hand signals that pre-snap he can look over at me, and I tell him what I want. If I want him to throw the screen, I signal it.
Right.
And one thing that does is if we get in games where the quarterback is trigger shy and he's not throwing the bubble when he damn has to, right. I can tell him. But on the flip side is when he's too trigger happy and he wants to keep throwing the gift and he needs to be handing it off, I can tell him to. Right. So to me, that type of combo play, why not be able to look out and give him a signal, 1, to throw your first option, or 2, and now, boom, start the motion and let's rip, I think that's one thing about pre-snap stuff that I love is that I can control it, and if somebody's going to be wrong, let it be me.
Yeah. We ran into that because our quarterback for the past 3 years, he's going to Kentucky. He's Bo Allen, and he's an absolute stud, and he's very trigger happy. So we learned his sophomore year that if you give him RPO, he's gonna throw it. He's gonna throw it. And so what we end up doing his junior year, and he had so much success, is we could turn it off and on.
Yeah.
If we just want to hand the ball off, we're just going to call inside zone. If we want, if we actually want him to read it, we're gonna tag it on there. And Bo was the type of kid that would get in the film room with you and dedicate himself and understand numbers, understand gap exchanges. He was with it. And he was dedicated, and he wanted to be great. So we're in the transition period, and I'm finding a lot of the guys that are coming up are just as dedicated. So that's good to hear for the
That's
team.
awesome. So, all right, fellas, I'm out. I really appreciate it. Have a blessed one. Stay healthy, and hope to see you guys next time.
All right, appreciate it, Pete.
Yes, sir.